yeah, it really changed my life in a beautiful way. So,
So for you, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, like, whenever some kind of accident or eruption happens, you know, even in the moment when it was happening, when I was sitting in the car, I was looking in the rear view and I saw the truck coming and I knew it wasn't going to slow down. My thought was, okay, universe, what is this? What is this?
Wow.
What is this here to show me?
Yeah.
You know, so I always had that awareness that I'm about to be taught something.
Yeah, that's a pretty big lesson.
Yes.
So I'm curious with the flower essences and on your journey with them as healing allies, as you call them, was it like a longer, slower evolution through that? Or were there moments of like you started working with one specific flower and there was like an immediate, you know, shift or awareness or illumination? How did that work for you personally?
So, you know, the first time when I had my son, initially, when I first started using the remedies back then, I was also working with a therapist who was like, she was a psychotherapist. I was going for counseling to work through the grief of being abandoned and all of that. And she happened to also be a Bach flower practitioner. And so every week I would go in for counseling, and, you know, and at the end of it, she'd give me a bottle of remedies.
Very cool.
And I was like, and I noticed back then that my transition out of that like victim mindset, or like that really bogged down, I'm a single mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
My transition out of that was like, boom. Like it just, like I just got out, like it just
shifted.
It just shifted so quick, and I attributed it to the remedies. And so I'd say that it was a combination of remedies,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very specific to what I was going through at the time, the different emotional states I was in. There was definitely particular flowers that were like definitely my flowers, like what I would call now like a type flower. You know, everyone tends to have a type.
Mm-hmm.
But there were also catalyst flowers that like worked as a catalyst for me.
Yes.
So it was a combination of like a bunch of different things and being present with whatever was coming up in the
Mm-hmm.
moment. And then as I went on later to become a Bach flower practitioner, I have all the remedies now, and they're just there at my disposal. And so, you know, if something's coming up, I can just, there we go. Just take like a little bit here or there.
And are they tinctures? Or are there different ways, like teas? How do you actually ingest them?
So let me show you real quick.
Yes, please. Yes.
Here's my arsenal here. They come.
Look at that. It's like so for the people who can't see you right now, it's like this traveling briefcase kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like a traveling case with all of these beautiful remedies in there.
Yes.
And basically they look like tinctures, right? Like in a bottle.
Little glass bottles. Are they amber bottles?
They're amber, although they can be blue,
Uh-huh.
as long as they're dark, just to help keep them preserved, you know,
Yeah.
So the light doesn't get into them too much, which is why they're in a dark case as well.
Yes.
So yeah, basically it's just, you know, a flower essence that's put inside of either alcohol or glycerin to use to preserve it. So you can take them by putting some in your water. You can put them in a room spray. You can put them in your bath. You can just like pulse point them. You can put them in your lotion.
So sort of like an essential oil.
I mean,
kind of.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the way that you ingest.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the transition from more photography as of late into this, and then give us a lesson, school us on some basics?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm trying to think about where I left off in my story. Oh yeah, so the car accident, and then my
Yes.
mom, and then I'll like quick fast forward. I went on to have another child after that, and have a very harmonious co-parenting relationship now. And I was in a subsequent partnership that ended kind of in a really intense, dramatic way. Again, flower remedies for that. How do I word this? So my transition from photography to flower essences. Well, all right. So I had my photography business, and that's been going all throughout all of that. And the flower essences, back when I became a practitioner, I'd done some trainings. I'm a Bach flower certified trainer, so I can train people to actually I can do level 1 training. So I can teach people about the essences and things like that. I had been teaching some classes, but there wasn't a ton of interest locally here with the people in my town, because I don't know, I guess, I don't know why. There was interest, but there wasn't like a ton. It wasn't financially sustainable, I would say. And so I leaned more heavily on my photography business. And then, COVID happened and it is happening. And so then I started being like, everyone's moving their business online. I probably could reach a lot more people online with my flowers. And it's something that I had been using on my own. And in my photography business, I do work with, soul-centric entrepreneurs doing branding photography for them. And oftentimes I would post like very spiritual-esque type quotes and stuff on my page, which I think is how we connected on that page initially. You're like, oh, okay, we're on the same page here.
Well, I was like, can you come take pictures of me? And you're like, I'm on the East Coast.
That's like, well, I would come, but COVID,
Right.
So yeah, I mean, basically I just decided that my more spiritual side, this flower essence, yogi part of me needed its own space to be and breathe and expand. And that I wanted to, keep my photography separate from my more, spiritual side. Not that they're all interwoven ultimately, but, I just wanted to keep it like,
have their own spaces.
It needed its own place to grow. And, not everyone who likes my photography necessarily cares about flower essences.
Right. So they're different energies. They're different operation.
Totally different worlds. And so they needed their own space. And so I created my own space for it. I created the Instagram page, Elevated Alchemy Life. It all came to me just one night. I don't know. I was sitting there. I was like, this baby needs a place to grow and breathe. And so my previous business, when I was doing the Bach flower therapy, it was called Wise Flower Healing. And that was my business. That was my soul, my business name. But then I had dissolved that over the years because I wasn't doing much with it, and I just kind of let it. And then I was like, this needs to come back in a different form. So I recreated it. I also, and that's a whole other podcast interview, but I also completed a yoga teacher training through this COVID experience, which was a pickup from where I had left off right before my car accident. Right before the car accident, I was in a yoga teacher training as well. So, it was kind of a revisiting of everything I had done and recreation of the space. And now I am able to reach everyone in the world who's interested in flower essences or who looks up flower essences. They find me. People find me on Instagram, and now I have a bigger reach, and it's more of a sustainable business that's flourishing in a beautiful way. So I feel like both sides of me get to like stand in who they are and like do their thing.
Yeah. So I love that on so many levels for so many reasons. One, this podcast is sort of one of those things for me, right? Where, COVID sort of, I think, has given those of us who are tuned in. So I love many, many moments there. You talked about intuition without using the word intuition, right? Which is another layer to this podcast that I want to make sure I'm weaving through, because so many people aren't aware that that is what they're hearing or that's what's coming through, and maybe want to start something, and whether or not it's even a full-fledged business, maybe it's a creative project or endeavor of some sort. And, hearing you talk about your story, you've listened to that internal voice as it's come through, and even picking up the multiple modalities throughout your healing experience as well, and trusting, oh, it's time to step back into the yoga, or it's time now for the flower remedies to come back, but in a new way, and another iteration of that, giving it some new life, breathing new life into it. So there's so much juicy soul-centric business evolution in there. And also, tuning into your intuition. And when you said it came to me one night, what is that? Let's just go a little there for a second. What does that look and sound like for you? I know how it is for me, but everyone's experience is so different of how we hear it, and then whether we acknowledge it or not, and then where you kind of go from there. So
for me, I was looking, I used to think in like black and white terms. It was like, I have to do this or this, this or this, right? I didn't see how there could be room for both. And at one point I was talking to a friend, and I was like, I knew I needed to offer flower essence therapy on the side again. And I actually put it on my photography page as like a service. I just threw it on there because it needed a place where people could book.
Sure.
And then I started thinking, like, what's the common thread here? Like, why do I do both? Why does all of this speak to me? And I was like, it's all about light. Photography is all about shadow and light. Flower essences are all about shadow and light and working. And I was like, oh, I work with shadow and light. Like, that's my life purpose. That's like why I'm here.
Yep.
And so when I started looking at, well, how did this come through me? I feel like I've been through a lot of shit, right? I've been through some shit. And like in the shit, in the muck of it, like being in those shadow realms, like learning how to integrate the shadow, learning how to work with what's showing up. It's a form of alchemy, and so it just, boom, it came to me. And then the elevated piece was like helping elevate people, their vibrational frequencies, helping elevate myself. It was just like, get up out of the funk, like that was the whole point of it. So then that's sort of how it was birthed. I literally, once I had the name, my kids laugh about this. They woke up the next morning and I had my website done.
Wow.
I stayed up all night and I was like, there it is. And it just like, it all downloaded. Yes. And then in the morning, they woke up and I was like, look at this website. And my son's like, Mom, you like just busted out a website in one day.
Yep. That's how it works.
I was like, yeah, it just came through and here it is. And
you just gave birth to it just like that.
I just birthed it out.
Mama had another baby overnight.
Right. And as it was happening, and it had been churning and cooking in my brain for a while. But it just came through on its own, and now here it is, and I'm so grateful. I get to meet amazing people, and
I love that. Yeah, I got woken up with a download last night too about a post that I need to post on Instagram. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I have my phone notes like that. I just will open up a new note and just kind of, and half the time I'm still in like that in between in the theta state. And so it doesn't even always make sense fully, but there's usually a word or two that I'm like, okay, that was the thing. Yeah. Go back there. Yes. Love those.
Like that too.
Yeah. Love those downloads.
Like how do you constantly, like come up with content, right? And I'm like, it's not content. These are just things that come out of my brain. Like, yes. They're downloads. It's not like content. It just cracks me up, right?
Yeah. There's a whole, Elizabeth Gilbert, do you know the author Elizabeth Gilbert? She wrote Yeah. So, and Big Magic, which I love her book, Big Magic. And she even had like kind of a pseudo podcast. It was on YouTube. She just did audio recordings on YouTube of her kind of coaching people through parts of the book. And she talks about that that ideas and everything's just like in this cosmic soup, upstirring kind of in the cosmos, and it wants to find a host. And so it'll tap somebody on the shoulder, and if that person doesn't take action on it, it'll go bounce somewhere else. So